May be surprised, may be surprised to see me sitting here. I am the interim dean for the college and have been since about September of a year ago. And I'm not quite sure when the last campus conversation took place. But you may recall that our provost or our former dean, Paula Lancaster, was appointed provost about that period ago. So I have a group of faculty here and staff here with me today who we're planning to share information with you about how many of our programs in the college are infused with technology. And this topic kind of was an outgrowth of a lot of the conversation and media attention and conversations here at CMU around artificial intelligence and what that means for our programs. But as we've talked about that, what occurred to me was that we infuse technology in a lot of our programs, some in new ways that you may not be familiar with or have heard about. And so perhaps it would be worthwhile to have several of our programs talk with you about the way technology is being involved or infused here. So I've invited a couple of people to join today with me. And sorry, I'm not, there we go. Hmm. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble advancing the slides at the moment. Let me just go back. Okay, there we go. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I have several faculty and staff with me today. One, Julie Cunningham, who is our director of the Center for Excellence in STEM Education. Tanya Domina, who's the chair of Fashion, Interior Design, and Merchandising. And Jillian Davidson, who's our director of our Office of Educator Preparation Programs. So, in part, that gives you an idea of the areas in which technology is being used and that we're going to talk with you about today. They're also listed in order. So, we'll start with Julie to talk about the STEM Center and the way excuse me, not the STEM Center, but one of the centers that is aligned with the STEM Center and how virtual reality is a part of that space.
Thanks, Megan. And I know it's a hassle to do the PowerPoint while you're on the Zoom call, but just so you know, we still see the very first slide of the technology-infused
Oh
program,
my
the title
goodness.
slide. But it doesn't
Thank,
matter to me. I can talk about VR with or without the slides.
thank you.
Sure. So welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. Like Megan said, I am with the Center for Excellence in STEM Education. That's located on the first floor. Perfect. Now we see the, yeah, thank you. The first floor of the College of Education and Human Services. And that's only important because the lab that I'm going to talk about is right across the hall from us. And I just want to mention two ways that college students, university students at CMU interact with our center now, as it's going to play a role in how I explain the VR lab. So there's two ways in which college students interact with us now. The first way is if you're in the teacher education program, so you're a pre-service teacher, you might apply to the STEM Ed Scholar program and then work with K-12 students when they come into the makerspace. And the second way in which we interact with college students right now, or they interact with us, is every other Thursday night we have open make in the makerspace, which allows college students to use all the tools that we have available to be makers in whatever way, shape, or form they want to create or they want to design or build. So those two things are going to come up again in my explanation of the AR VR lab. So this lab is on the first floor of EHS. You might recognize it because it has all the windows. You've likely walked past it or seen it if you've been in the education building. It was a computer lab. It probably had about 35 desktop computers, most of which were outdated, and it was being mostly used by students for printing and for very little else towards the end of its sort of lifespan. So now it has, as you can see, six VR AR bays and then eight spots in which there are computers and headsets. And the two pictures are meant to show you that what how the dividers sort of look when they're open or closed. So there is a little bit of privacy between the bays by opening the dividers. You can see in the second picture. So I do want to explain what I mean when I say VR and AR and XR because we like to throw around those acronyms, but it isn't always clear to everybody what the difference between them are. So VR stands for virtual reality, and it's a technology that simulates a virtual environment while allowing the user control over movement and aspects of that virtual world. So it simulates the virtual environment, and the user of that environment gets to experience the environment. Augmented reality and XR, which is extended reality, refers to technology that overlays artificial images, data, or video on top of the real world experience. So they are a little bit different. This lab can handle all three of those technologies. The lab, you can see a picture of what the lab looks like, and then there's seating along the wall that goes to the hallway. So people who are, if a faculty were to bring a class of students, there is room for multiple students in one bay if they're working as a small group, and then there's room for people who are potentially waiting or have their laptop out or working on something that's related to what those in the VR world are working on. In talking to other universities, folks who work in the VR space, when classes come in, it's unusual for students to have the headsets on a student for more than about a 20-minute stint. So if a class is in there for a chunk of time, an hour and a half or something, multiple students can use the same headset in rotation. The what we have for headsets are called Vario headsets, and in just a minute we'll show you a picture of what they look like. They are tethered. They're tethered to the computer because so much data and information is sent between the headset and the computer. They're very high quality headsets, often used in the government and in training pilots and things like that, that they couldn't send enough information fast enough without being tethered to the computer. So you might notice that looks a little bit different. This commercial headset looks a little bit different than things you might be familiar with that you would use at home. We did have the computers built by a local Michigan computer design company. They're called Rave Computing. So they built all of the computers for the headsets. We, in education, the VR worlds get used a lot for simulations. So maybe in health professions, they might simulate a cadaver, right? And doing uh, a dissection of a cadaver when cadavers become unavailable or are very expensive to get a hold of. So high-end simulations and field trips are one way. So going someplace that you couldn't travel with a class easily, where this would allow you to sort of be at that space for a field trip. People use them a lot in design, that design that would allow you to create the world or create the landscape or create the living room that you want to design and then enter it to see what it feels like to be in that space. They're used a lot similarly in design and engineering, engineering practice of putting things together or designing things. And then the other way in which the virtual reality affords us something different in education is collaboration. So multiple people can be in that world, in that space, interacting with one another, even if geographically they are separate from one another. So we just had a student who was meeting a friend to do a game, right? And the friend was in California and the CMU student was on campus. So I think that's just something that the students are used to that might be unfamiliar to us. So those are some ways in which we expect faculty and students to use the space. It should open in spring. It's soft opened now already. Megan, you can go to the next slide, please. And it should open more formally for faculty and staff and students in spring of 2026. It is not relegated to only being used by the College of Education and Human Services, anyone across campus. Um, we expect to be able to reserve it and use it, and we expect to have open hours for students to use it regularly. You can play that video if you'd like, Megan. These two, and the video doesn't have audio, so I'll tell you what he's doing. But these two examples of students using the lab come from our open make time, our college make time. So these students who are using the virtual reality. So the young man in the video has been at that train site, the space where the trains all come together. I'm not even sure, train depot site. He's worked there and he could, that also exists online. And he wants to be an engineer, or he is an engineering student who would work at a train yard. So he's explaining to people in the room about what he did at his summer job. And you can see that when he moves his hands, he's interacting in the world. He feels like he's in that world, but also other people in the room can see what he's doing and how he's interacting with the world. So those are some of the values of, or the value added to the VR world. The center expects to use it for high school field trips when it's not being used by faculty, staff, and students. And I think this will really highlight for high school students how CMU might potentially support their education and maybe differently than another university. And that's it for me. So I'll pass it back to Megan. Thank you.
So, I am from the Department of Fashion, Interior Design, and Merchandising. And while the fashion merchandising students and the interior design students also make use of this type of this equipment and other specialized pieces, given the time length, I'm going to focus just on how the design students might make use of it. So the first piece of equipment that we have that's specialized is the handheld 3D scanner. It's the only one on campus. And so what it does is it allows you to capture pretty much any kind of physical object and then turn it into a digital object. So, for example, the product that I'll take you through is a shoe, a sneaker, but the design students, it could be that they have found a single vintage button, for example, and they want to be able to create more of those to add to their garment. And so the first step in that process would be to digitize it, for example. It could be that you are trying to incorporate some aspect of nature. So you want to digitize a leaf or a stick or a rock, or you can pretty much digitize anything. And we do allow programs and students from across campus to use it. Actually, just this morning, we had students from biology who were here and they were digitizing fossils. So the idea is that once they're digitized, then the actual fossils could be broken apart and then carbon dated, for example, because you have to destroy them to do that. So it has a lot of different applications. The engineering students have used it to capture the inside of their submarine in the engineering building. And what they're trying to do is to reverse engineer a part. So it has a lot of applications, and we're really excited to use it. So the first thing would be to have a product and then to digitize it. And what you see next is what that product might look like once it has been captured by the 3D handheld scanner. If you had an object with that was quite large and needed it to be scanned in sections, you could then bring in all the sections and put them together to create that bigger product. So for example, we're working with Avalon and Tahoe right now. They make pontoon boats to get their seat cushions digital. And so they're quite large. And so we have to do it in segments, and then we'll be able to join them together. So the whole point, though, of getting, for the design students, of getting these products into a digital form is to then to be able to modify them in some way and make changes to them and to make them their own. So after they're digital, from there, the department has VR goggles, and the students then can import this captured into the VR goggle software. And from there, they can begin to virtually modify the product. So in this case, I have a shoe, so maybe the thickness of the sole would change, or the height, or maybe they want to change it from this ankle cut to a high top, all the different pieces. So they can start to completely virtually change it. Once they think they might be satisfied, Megan, you can go to the next slide, please. Then the next step is to determine or to evaluate the product that you have created to see if it's really what you want before you move forward. So we also have then 3D printers in our Whiteman space. And from there, after they're satisfied, they would then send the image. It would then go into a 3D printing software, Rhino. And from there, it would go into a 3D printer to be printed out as a prototype. At this point, the design student can look at the prototype and evaluate and say, is this really what I want? Yes or no? And if it's not, if it needs to be modified, they can then go back to the VR goggles and work with the product some more and make additional changes, and then back and print it again as a 3D prototype. Once they're satisfied that they have a design that they like, they can then, because it's been digitized, we also use an industry software. It's called Clo3D, and it allows a design student, to create garments, products, patterns, all in 3D, and then it will stitch those patterns together, and then you can put it on an avatar for fit analysis. So this is really the way our industry is going. In order to reduce costs, it's more sustainable, uses less resources. So for example, Target, they've committed to reducing the number of samples by over 50% in just a couple years. They use Clo3D. And so instead of having this physical product coming from overseas and then evaluating it in their Minneapolis corporate headquarters, making changes back overseas, back and forth until it looks good, they can actually just evaluate it right on the spot on an avatar that would represent a fit model for them. The other thing that's nice about Clo3D is that if you make a change to the garment, so if I had a sweater and it originally had a crew neck, and I've decided, I think I'd rather have a V-neck sweater. If I pull on this neckline and I make it a V-neck, it's connected to all the pattern pieces needed to make the sweater, and those pattern pieces are automatically changed modify to reflect that change. And that's like a huge, huge time savings for technical designers and fashion designers rather than going back to the actual piece of paper pattern, refolding it, remodifying it, and starting all over again. So anyway, so you can, in this case, you can take the shoe that you designed in virtually, and you can then put it on your avatar to see about fit, see how it fits, see how it looks. Um, and from there, then, if you, once you're happy with it, if you want, you can go the opposite direction. So it's sort of like reverse engineering. So in this case, the software could take the shoe apart into its components and create the pattern pieces versus starting with pattern pieces, virtually sewing the pattern pieces together, and then evaluation. So it goes both directions. Once you have your shoe also in Clo 3D and you have it on your avatar, and then you're happy with it, what you can then do is also start to play with textures and colors and other resources. And so it could be, it's a way for you to create your entire shoe line without actually ever making a real sample shoe. And from this final last two images, the pattern pieces then are laid out on what's called a marker. So they're laid out in a way that makes manufacturing easy. It also will ensure as close to zero waste as possible. So you're trying to minimize scrap fabric, number one, and you're trying to minimize the number of cuts that would be made to cut out the pattern on in a manufacturing scenario. And then from there, the product would be stitched up. So anyway, even for something like a vintage button, the students often will continue on into Clo 3D where they already have their garment anyway. And that allows them to put like a button on or whatever they virtually first and see if they like it before they continue forward. So they may have originally thought, well, I think I'm going to have 5 buttons down the front. And before they go to the trouble and expense of printing all those buttons, they can look at it and they say, you know, 5's too many. It's visually off. I think I only need 3. And so then they can go back, they can remove 2. Yeah, this looks great. I'm only going to print three buttons, not 2. So that's sort of how the design students are using our specialized equipment. The merchandising students use it in a different way, and they sort of take the product from there and move forward to the consumer, but that's a different presentation. So
Wow. Thank you, Tanya. Maybe that's next year's campus conversation. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our last presenter, which is Jillian Davidson.
Good afternoon. I'm going to highlight a specific technology platform that we use in teacher education, and that platform is called GoReact. GoReact is an online platform that allows students to upload videos of their teaching practice and engage in self-reflection as well as receive feedback. We have embedded GoReact across all of our programs. So traditional on-campus programs, these would be students who are here on campus in Mount Pleasant, who are going to be certified in grade bands birth through secondary education, so high school. So we have people in programs that are ages 0 to 5. We also have elementary education and then secondary education. And GoReact is used in all of those on-campus programs. It's used by faculty to observe candidates while they are in early field experiences or pre-student teaching experiences when they cannot make it out to the sites. So they're able to observe their students via the videos, Or they can also do activities in class where students are doing simulations and recording videos of them practicing specific skills and receiving feedback from their faculty or peers. We also use GoReact in our traditional online programs. So these similarly are students that are going to be certified in programs primarily in elementary education. That's where most of our online programs are. We also have a fully online early childhood program that leads to teacher certification in Michigan. And for these students, because they are separated from campus by distance, they are located across Michigan and even around the world. We do have, especially in the early childhood program, students that are in other states as well as in other countries participating in that program. So GoReact allows them to participate in their experiences via video. So they're able to upload videos and receive feedback from their faculty and their peers. And then the third program that we've really embedded GoReact and has become a huge value for us is in the experimental programs. Our experimental programs are accelerated programs leading to teacher certification for individuals who are primarily post-traditional students. So these are individuals who are working in schools as paraprofessionals or long-term subs that are not yet certified and are looking to become a certified educator. Once again, because they are separated from us by distance, GoReact allows us to provide high quality field observation right here from Mount Pleasant to wherever these individuals are across the state. On the next slide, I highlighted a few images which show why we use GoReact versus, say, another platform where we would exchange videos. So the power of GoReact is that it allows pre-service teachers to record and submit videos working on specific skills and receive time-stamped feedback from their peers or from their faculty members. This year, we've also incorporated the AI options. And so the AI options allow the students to get feedback within minutes on their videos, instantaneous. Those comments automate specific desired goals that we have for students related to the critical skills of an educator. So the AI gives feedback on classroom management skills, their questioning techniques, the pacing of their lesson, and it even offers suggestions. And then our faculty at a flexible time, a time that works for them, are able to go in and add additional tailored comments that go in further depth than the AI markers. I think the thing that really has been a value add for us with the AI component is it allows students to upload an unlimited number of videos of their own teaching practice on areas that they want to improve. So we're not requiring or asking our university supervisors or our field instructors to watch the same practice multiple times, but students are able to upload, say, 3 or 4 videos working on the same skill and receive that AI feedback in a very timely fashion. So it's allowing them to get more detailed feedback at a moment's notice and unlimited feedback. So we've been very pleased with this, that addition. For us here at CMU, we have really taken a proactive approach to addressing the teacher shortage that's impacting districts across Michigan. And the utilization of a system like GoReact has allowed us to be more flexible with our coursework and clinical work. And so we're able to directly help individuals who maybe can't get to campus experience the quality programs that CMU has to offer on their journey to becoming an educator. That is all I had to share about GoReact. So thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Jillian. Um, this is a time where we might be able to entertain any questions that any of our participants have. I don't know if any came in on the chat, Allison. Is that a place to start?
I do have one question so far.
Okay.
Is as it relates to the VR equipment, currently, do you have enough, I don't know what else to call them besides sets, to accommodate the needs and the requests that are currently happening? Or what, are there additional ones that you feel like are going to need to be purchased? Can we talk to that point a little bit, maybe? Sure. And Megan, feel free to chime in as well. But we're just opening the lab now. It's just really been a soft opening for the college students to use at this point and starting to inform faculty about what's available and in our college. So I suspect that once the lab gets a lot of use, it won't be very long before it's too small, right? Or it doesn't have enough equipment. As it is now, a large class wouldn't be able to use it all at one time. I think probably we figured around 25 students could be in there at any given time. So, the class would have to use it in small groups, or they'd have to send just part of their class there, or they'd have to give an assignment for students to go to the lab outside of their class time, right? Those types of things. Or if a student was doing research with a faculty, that could be another way to use it in a smaller scale. Um, but I think before we decide that we need, so yes, we will need more headsets, but also I think before too long we'll need more space. So
Sure.
it's a good start, I think, and we'll see very shortly how much use it gets and what
I'm
the
sure it will get
sort of,
used a lot.
yeah, what the capacity is.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
The only thing that I might add to that as well, Julie is absolutely right. We're at the beginning and we feel like we're adequately equipped right now, but
Sure.
we haven't really put the lab through its full paces yet at this point. But we also realize technology is changing so rapidly. We tried to think ahead as we were preparing this lab. We were limited on space. We couldn't do much about that, but even what equipment is available. So we do envision that that's going to be one of our challenges going forward is that as technology evolves, will our equipment need to be replaced and updated to keep pace with that? And we think the answer is for sure yes. We just don't know in what ways.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think it's also really helpful that you mentioned the space as well, because I think sometimes when we're talking about technology and needing more, or you just kind of forget that not all places that these pieces are in have the ability to expand or accommodate those needs as well. So that's helpful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do we have any other questions? I'm just looking through the chat. Let's
I
see.
was going to ask Julie a question. The two images that were up, the young man who was actually moving around, standing in one of our bay areas, but there was also a picture of someone sitting in a chair behind a counter, and both were actively involved. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how much space is needed or not needed in order to engage in the lab itself.
Sure. So I think a lot of times people who especially are not necessarily gaming or who are very experienced with VR. And we saw this when we went to design the lab, we got this feedback, sit down, right? That's very common because really you just need to be moving your hands more or less in the space, especially if you're doing some sort of design activity. So students can, we have options for them to pull a chair into the space and then so the amount of space they need really is just the computer cart and a chair if they're to just be on the VR. And so that's why that young lady was sitting right at the desk. I think she was doing something artistic. I'm not exactly sure which program she had up. But she didn't need to be moving around the space in the same way that young man did.
And that was my second question, not related to space itself, but more related to software. Could you just talk briefly about availability of software and fully what we have there now versus what we might have in the future?
Sure. So a couple of pieces of software that Tanya mentioned that her department already uses, like the Rhino software, anything that has like CAD design in it, right? That people would use. And I can use an example. I should have done this when I was speaking earlier. One of Tanya's faculty members designed a house. She built the house with all of the rooms and all of the furniture in it. And the idea is, and she's doing it for her research, but she has her students entering the house and walking around in it. And the idea is that this house has been owned for like 30 years by a couple, right? So all of the sort of things that people accumulate over their lifetimes that you would expect to find in a house where someone's been living for 30 years. It's kind of what these rooms look like. And so you enter the house and you're asked to design a first floor bedroom because the couple can no longer go to the second floor, or at least one member of the couple can no longer go to the second floor to access their master bedroom. So the design students are asked to design bedroom on the first floor, but to take into consideration the ways in which these people currently use their house. So to have some empathy for their lifestyle, right? And so that's the idea behind that project. So the design is done in a piece of software that we do have. And then we had to move it into another piece of software where the people who put on the VR headsets can enter the house and interact and walk around the house and think about how they might redesign that master bedroom. So we do have a pretty good set of design software, and the software like Unity is another example, but software that allows people to sort of enter the world that they've built. In addition to like SketchUp, and Steam has a lot of just open source software that we can easily access, but that tends to be more um, educational games or educational field trip type software.
Right. Thank you.
Wow.
Megan Moreno, I see that you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yes, I do. So my question is, like, I understand the value of the use of some of this technology with training our students, but I'm wondering also, what is the expectation on the other side, like for from a standpoint of employers? Whether, I mean, there are two examples where really education or in the design, like fashion design industry, apparel design. Um, is there an expectation sort of on the other end post graduation that students will have had experience with this sort of technology and that they will have, you know, some sort of knowledge of how to use it? And does that sort of lend itself to the fact that it's very necessary that we prepare students through with use of this technology so that they're able to go right into the workforce and be able to utilize it?
I can start. So the Clo 3D software is used by industry. I mentioned Target, but of course it's also used by like Carhartt and Nike and Adidas. So it really is an industry standard. And it's still somewhat new to universities. So by having had these experiences using Clo 3D and these technologies, this gives our students sort of an advantage over other students from other design students from other universities who might be coming from a little bit more traditional focus. You know, not that we have completely eliminated the hands-on patterning and sewing and garment construction. That's still important too. But the reality of it is that is not the direction the industry is going. And at least in our industry, you know, we really haven't talked about AI, but our students are using AI in industry every single day. There is an expectation that you can go in and you can use AI in a way that would make your job more effective, more efficient, allow you to get more work done. So I think by having these technologies and having students exposed to them now definitely gives them an edge in the job market.
Thank you, Tanya. Jillian or Julie, do you want to add anything to Megan's question?
Sure, I can speak to education a little bit. The field of educational technology is very important, and I would say much more far-reaching than GoReact. And students learn about how to use different technologies during instruction in some of their other courses, embedded across the different grade banded programs. I would say specific to GoReact and what we spoke about today, there are a few things that I do think are really important for workplace readiness and education. One are the skills of reflection and film analysis. All teachers are evaluated yearly, and it is pretty common, especially in the beginning parts of their education, that they would watch videos of their own practice as part of their individualized plan with their administrator to set goals for their own growth. Even myself, it was definitely not on an iPhone. It was on an old VHS recorder, but I did that as a first year teacher myself, watched videos of myself teaching in areas that I then could tailor to target and tailor improvements for my own growth. So that is definitely something that is important. I also think that it's something that we can model for our students as educators when they're working on different skills, that they can watch a video of themselves, whether it's in the music classroom or in the drama classroom or in the non-performing arts, and you're thinking about PE and you're thinking about lifting. In my class right now, I have a lot of health and PE majors, and they were talking about using artificial intelligence of uploading videos of students lifting, and it would show whether they were in the correct posture. So I think the use of videos does have a lot of application in the PK-12 world. And lastly, I think I would be remiss if I didn't highlight how our use of GoReact really helped us to be prepared and forward focused when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, Education was vastly changed during that season, and teachers were delivering instruction from their homes, from empty buildings. And so having our students learn at the very beginning of their program what it's like to teach and record it helps them to be prepared for a variety of instructional scenarios. I think we can all agree none of us want to go back to that COVID-19 era, but our students were already comfortable with what that looked like. And so I think being somewhat camera ready is something that is not too far fetched for many educators in PK-12 situations. And as an institution, it allowed us for our students to still continue their student teaching even during a pandemic. So we were very grateful for our utilization of GoReact during that season. So those are a few connections that I would make between GoReact video and the workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to add specifically to the workforce. I think Tanya's examples are probably very appropriate for the VR lab in general. But the one thing I will add is that with two of our departments in our college for teacher education and for counseling, there will likely be programs that will allow our students to practice teaching or to practice working as a counselor, right? That will make them stronger candidates as they graduate. So whether or not they will use in those instances VR in their fields after graduation or not, I think just that the practice-based nature of those degrees will be helpful to have the extra situations, the extra practice here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those questions and answers were very helpful. And I think you do make a good point. Not just are you using this equipment for individuals to do their work, but to become better at what they're doing. So that's very important. Let's see. Just have some feedback about awesome presentation and what a great opportunity our students have to use the technology like this.
Thank you.
I do want to say before we end, we'll give it just another minute. I don't want to miss any questions through the chat, but thank you, Megan and Jillian and Tanya and Julie, for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to host this campus conversation. We truly appreciate your time and energy that you put into this. So thank you.
You're welcome, Allison, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. If we had had much more time, there's much more technology that we could have shared with the participants, and maybe we'll think about that for a future campus conversation. But I really hope that the participants will leave thinking about the learning that students today are doing in all of these disciplines and in the many different ways in which that learning is happening. It's keeping us challenged, but also keeping our fields really exciting because there is so much that is happening and changing over time. So thank you for being a part of learning a little bit about what's happening in these fields.
Thank you so much, and I will write that down because I will come back to you, and we can schedule you for another one so we can continue learning about this important piece of all the technology. Thank you, everyone,
Sounds
for participating. Please look for a follow-up email from me with the recording link and a survey. I hope you have a great day. Fire up chips.
okay. Thank you.